Even if you have the smallest business ever, you have to think of it as if it's already a big business. You have to think of it as if it's already a franchise. It's scaled. It has, staff. You have to start from there. You can't try to do everything yourself and then be burned out and then try to get there. No, it's always better if you start from there.
I always say this all the time. My CEO, my tech firm that I used to work at, he didn't know anything about technology. He had one employee when he first started, and I let you know for a fact, he never hopped on a phone call to deal with tech.
Yeah.
He never got behind a computer. He barely knew how to operate his own computer.
Yep.
He knew how to run the business, and he always said, worst case scenario, I could always find somebody to do their job. And he's like, he's never done it. So I understand that aspect of it. All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the More Than a Side Hustle podcast, where we help 9-to-5s create more impact, income, and influence outside their jobs. My name is Anthony.
And I'm Janoka. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you're subscribing, sharing, letting people know what we're doing, letting people know what we're talking about. Thank you for those that stop and leave us a comment. We ask that you continue to do it week to week.
Yes. So you guys may notice that we are in a different setting. You may hear some background noise because we are doing a live recording, meaning there are people in the room with us for very first time, right?
Yeah.
Outside of our guests. So just be mindful of that. But before we get started, little housekeeping items as always. Like she said, rate us, leave us a review, show us some love, and share this out with at least one person. That's how you keep us going. But let's go ahead and get started, man. So, number one, if you guys didn't know, we created a 7-figure cleaning business without cleaning any houses. And 2.5 years ago, we started teaching this information. And one of our very first students has officially hit $1 million in the cleaning industry without cleaning houses. And he's here with us today. So Alex, go ahead, introduce yourself. And let's go ahead, man. It's okay. It's okay. We are live. So Alex, go ahead, introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are.
Yeah, man. First, I just want to say appreciate y'all, for bringing me out, man, setting up this whole weekend. This has been, a dope experience. So I'm just happy to be here, man.
Happy to be here.
It's been a long time coming, man, especially 2.5 years ago. I think that's when I initially met y'all.
Yep.
Back in early 2020, before y'all was even, teaching.
Oh, yeah, because we was on your podcast for the debt freedom. If you guys don't know, we paid off $114,000 of debt in 23 months.
Yeah.
And a lot of people knew us from that before the cleaning business. So, we were on the podcast.
That was early 2020. Before that was right at the beginning of the pandemic, whenever I had y'all on my podcast for that. So it's just been that's crazy how this kind of comes full circle now. But yeah, man, my name is Alex. It's like Ant said. I learned how to start the cleaning business back in 2020, and I took their blueprint and I ran with it. I mean, we obviously gonna get into it, but it's all I can say is from $350 to $1 million, and I think that's something incredible. That's something that you had in your head, y'all had in y'all's head. You can transfer that to something, and somebody can take it and run with it, and change their life with it. So that's a little bit about me, just on a higher level. We can get into more, but
we definitely gonna get into it.
And to be clear, that's not the price anymore. It's no longer $350. Just want to make sure you know that. But yes, that's what it was at the time when we were just starting out.
It's funny because I was telling her, there was a point where I'm pretty sure I remember it being $147.
we gonna cut that out.
Not because of me. But yes.
And that was the thing too, when we first started teaching this information, I think I told you this, but a lot of it was just us trying to understand my mindset around, all right, why don't I feel like people would pay for this information?
Yeah.
So I'm coming in at the lowest entry level, all right, I'm going to sell this for $50, $97. And I didn't believe that people would pay more money for it. Yeah. And you've done over $1 million. Yeah. So not even just you doing that for yourself, you were able to help me change my mindset of what was possible with this information.
Yeah, and what it's actually worth, right? Because it's ultimately, if you have something where somebody can, essentially replicate what you did, you've already went through it, and they can make, 10x whatever with it. And obviously there's a certain, value that's got to be placed on that information alone. So now, obviously I think the price is much more.
The prices went up.
Yeah. I'm saying it's much more justified. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's justified based on information. Right. Because I don't know what it looks like today, but the information I got at that point in time, it was very, very, highly valuable information that was really applicable. And there was a lot of people that kind of also took it at the same time, and you know, everybody got different results, but it was the same information.
Yeah.
So you can't say it was the information that wasn't good.
That's the whole point of testimonials and having students, and they're like, people say, well, it's not working for me, and I'm like, but I know it can work.
Yeah.
Not just, we haven't just done it, we have tons of testimonials. We have a student here that's at $1 million in 2.5 years, so I know it can work.
Yeah.
But speaking of, what made you even get the course? What made you say, like, let me try this out?
Yeah. I mean, it was, because at that point in time, so just a little bit prior to that, I had graduated college in 2018. This was like January of 2018. Or I graduated December 2017. I started working like as an engineer in January of 2018. And it was like, you know, I did that for a little bit, really like, it's like 2 weeks into it. I was like, wow, I actually don't want to do this for the rest of my life. It's actually like.
Your degree is in engineering?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, that was not, it wasn't, it was just something that, it was kind of a revelation at that point that was like, because, you know, I was 21 at the time, and being in the office, you see like other old folks in the office that, you know, there's days we're working late, right? And so it's like I'm there at 8 p.m. some days, and I'm seeing other dudes that's like, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60, and they're there with me. And it's like, okay, it's one thing for me to be here at 8. I'm 21. Like, I'm finna go home and play 2K. It's not much, like, I'm finna really go home to, but it's like, these are grown men with families. Like, y'all are sitting here when it's like, you missing dinner. So
yeah.
like that.
Attitude, wife got attitude at home.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, when I kind of had that thought, it was like, nah, I'm actually not gonna do that. So at that point, that's when I really just started trying to, you know, to just really get financial freedom. Ultimately, like, that became my goal at that point. I wanted to get financial freedom. I said in 5 years, by the time I was 21 at the time, I said by the time I'm 26, I want to have financial freedom. And so I started investing in real estate. That was the first thing I did. Ended up buying some properties, flipped a bunch of houses. So it's like, you know, that was something that was working well for me, but I saw it was going to take a very long time. It would take me maybe 10 years to get there. And I was like, I don't want to wait that long. So, you know, I went and tried other things, and that's kind of when we started the podcast as well. We started interviewing a whole bunch of other entrepreneurs, and I was like, wow, you can actually, you know, get financial freedom from other things, because all I knew at that time was real estate. And so it's like, we were interviewing people that were, you know, doing the trucking business, people that were doing vending machines, people that were doing rental cars. And it was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. And it was like, because it was all so new. So I was like, I started just doing everything. I started taking courses, and I was like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And it was really like, I call it like a period of just, it's like a entrepreneurship university. That's kind of how I looked at it. It's like, I just need to take every course and learn as much as I can and figure out what works for me. I'm just trying things, not to say this is what I'm going to do, but I'm trying things to see what kind of works for my personality. And I tried a bunch of things, and I lost a lot of money. And I don't see that as like a failure, because it was like, I had to get to that point to kind of get to the next point. But, you know, kind of fast forwarding in 2020, that was like, you know, with the pandemic, that's when we brought y'all onto the show, like we was kind of talking about before, onto our podcast. And y'all were kind of talking about, it wasn't even we didn't even bring y'all on to talk about the cleaning business. It was just about the debt payoff, because that's when we started getting guests. And that was like y'all's story about that was the first story I saw of anyone like paying off a massive, you know, 6-figure amount of debt within, you know, 2 years or something like that, right? That was a significant feat. And so that's mainly what we talked about. But there was also a point in that conversation, I don't even know if y'all remember, where y'all kind of just like mentioned the cleanup business. Yeah. It was just like a brief.
Because it wasn't something that, at that time, it really wasn't something we spoke about a lot. I'm actually very like, we want to put our business out there. So a lot of times, he's like, I think we could share. And I'm like, I don't think we need to. Like, I don't think anybody cares.
Like, I ain't with it.
Yeah, and I remember we talked about that off the podcast too, a little bit. And I remember Marlon was trying to really, like, he was in therapy with you. He was trying to like.
I'm a therapist, by the way. A licensed therapist, not just a life coach.
Not an Instagram therapist.
Yeah. Licensed in New York and Texas, okay?
Yeah. But like, yeah, we had those conversations, and then, you know, that was, you know, time kind of passed, and then that was in like early spring. And then by that summer, Anthony, that's when I think y'all started saying or mentioning how y'all wanted to just kind of put it out there and see what happens, right? Well, let's see. Like, it wasn't something where it's like, because y'all didn't know if people wanted it, right? Or I think that was at least the perspective at that time. That was the thought. Right? Y'all didn't know if people wanted this information or what they could do with it. Because y'all's business, I don't recall how much y'all had did as far as like y'all's revenue at that point in time in the business. But, you know, it was obviously to a point where it's like you you had a formula, right, to where you could like, essentially sell the information. So y'all had put that out, and I remember distinctly being one of the first people to buy it because it was like, oh, okay, I was, again, still in that entrepreneurship university. I was like, oh, perfect, just a new course. Just exactly what I needed.
Racking it up.
Yeah. I needed a new course, something else I could try. And, that was kind of my mindset at that time. And I tried that one, and it's so funny because I bought the course July of 2020.
And you got it early. That's when we just launched it, July.
Yeah.
We launched in July 2020.
And by August 6th of 2020, that was my first. I remember I got my business up in 2.5 weeks. That was my first client, August 6th, 2020. And I remember her name and everything. I remember all about it. But that was August of 2020. And I remember at that point, I was kind of just still doing other things, right? I wasn't really 100% focused on this because I didn't know. Again, I'm still just trying things. So I have 5 other businesses. I have a trucking business. I'm still flipping houses. I have rental cars. I'm still doing all this other stuff. And by the way, nothing is profitable. I'm just like doing things, trying things. Nothing is profitable. I'm still losing on everything. Still, working my job full time as well. And I remember I kind of got to a point where the business was making $5,000 a month, the cleaning business. August, September, October, November, December, it made $5,000 every month. And I had one cleaner. And I remember
that conversation.
Yeah. And I remember I was telling her, I was like, it's $5,000 a month. It's decent. I'm not mad at it, but I wasn't even thinking like, I was happy just to kind of see that one doing something, right? And I wasn't even thinking, let me go add more cleaners, let me do whatever. I had one cleaner, she was good. She was she was pretty much the business.
Yeah.
Like if she quit, the business would have stopped. So it was like, obviously it wasn't the right approach, but like I was fine with it at that time. And then 2021 came, and that's when, I had everything else. I was just started losing big time in, my trucking business, with rental cars, with everything. I just started losing big time with everything else, just for other reasons. And I'm still working. And then it kind of gets to a point where I'm just like, man, let me just try to, scale up this cleaning business a little bit. Let me just,
see what can happen.
Yeah, let me just see what I can. So I hired a couple more ICs, independent contractors, and from there, it just went exponential.
All right, we're going to stop you right there because I don't want you to get too far down the line.
Yeah.
Corey, you could hop in right here. We already told him we live, so we good. So you had mentioned you were trying a few different things, right? But you hear people say all the time, they no, focus on one thing. Yeah. So why did you feel like it was okay, to do Entrepreneurship University for you? Try a bunch of different things and see what sticks, because that's the complete opposite of what people normally say, right?
Yeah, and honestly, to be completely honest with you and candid, I say that in retrospect. At that point in time, I truly believed I would have 5, 6, 7 streams of businesses. I truly believed, I'm gonna have this trucking business. I'm gonna have this rental. I'm gonna have to clean. I truly believed it. I distinctly remember having that conviction of that's the way to do it. I've made videos about it, which have since been redacted because I don't believe that anymore.
It's okay, we grow.
Hindsight is 2020.
Yeah, and so it's I've talked a lot about kind of having that belief. Oh, you need multiple streams of income, right? But as I matured and got older and kind of understood business more, I realized you had to specialize in something. You had to gain expertise in something for anything to grow, right? You can't just be dabbling in a bunch of little things because then nothing's going to be profitable, right? Mm-hmm. You try to chase multiple rabbits, you'll catch none of them. And I didn't have that revelation until 2021. Right? Once everything else was struggling and this one thing was actually doing something, I'm like, man, why don't I just go all in on this instead of trying to do all these other things? So I understand why people say that mindset, but that thing of multiple streams of income, doing all these things, but I don't think people understand you got to specialize first and then branch off, right? Mm-hmm. Once something else has become, because if you think of any wealthy individual, if you think of any successful entrepreneur, they are known for one thing initially, right? They might have other streams of income now, but that's not what they initially created their wealth or, fame or whatever off of, right? It was a specialization of one thing because ultimately, in order to become great at anything, you have to be an expert at it. And it takes time to become an expert at anything, whether it's a skill, business, job, being a mother, whatever. It takes time to become an expert at anything you do. And eventually, if you stick to it long enough, it's impossible to you literally cannot fail. It's going to succeed and it's going to, continue to grow. So
Go
ahead. No, I was gonna say a question I had was about mindset and how do you? I mean, because you said as you got older, I'm like, boy, you 2 years old. You're still a little younger than most.
Yeah.
So where would you say you got your mindset from? Like, is that from college? Is that from home? Of just going in, trying things? If it don't work, moving on. Like, where did you get that from?
I think, I've always been someone like, I have a strong belief in God, number one. So it's a lot of my conviction comes because I truly believe that, the things that God has set for us, it's bigger than we can even imagine. So it's like, I think we think too small individually as people, just like as human beings. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, after that, it's like, I truly believe that, whatever, I've always had a mindset if there's something I'm going to, try or do, I want to be the best at it. I don't want to be mediocre at it. I want to be the person known for this one thing, right? I don't want to just be kind of doing anything haphazardly, getting average results. That's always been my mindset, whatever, just growing up, whether it was, playing football in school, whatever, I'm trying to be the best. Like, I want to destroy everyone. I'm just very competitive. And that, I think, is the root of, my mindset in that regard.
Okay.
What's crazy about that is that, like, that mindset shift. Like, The Rock was talking to John Cena, and this is going back to my wrestling days. The Rock became the biggest wrestler, and he tried to, before he became the biggest wrestler, he tried to do a little bit of acting. It didn't work out. He said, no, I'm going to go back to wrestling. He went back to wrestling, became the top of the charts, and then started going to do movies. So John Cena was like, yo, I want to try movies. And The Rock told him, like, no. Focus on wrestling, become the top at the wrestling, on the top of the field, and then focus on the movies.
Yep.
And it kind of goes back to that same mindset. It was like, you try to do too many things, nothing's going to work. You become the best and known for this one thing, then it allows you to do everything else. And now The Rock is like damn near a billionaire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that if you take that approach with anything, then, you're going to succeed at it. It's impossible not to succeed. But the thing is, most people aren't willing to wait long enough for that, time period of like no results, right?
Oh, child.
Yeah, and that's like, you have to be, and that's why, you have to be willing to kind of accept like subpar results or nothing, especially when it comes to business. You have to be willing to lose for a long period of time, break even, whatever, for a long period of time, because that's why you might not see anything on top, but underneath, that's when you're building up your expertise, your skills, everything that you need in order to actually continue to grow exponentially. So, and
that brings me to, a lot of times people ask us, how long does it take me to make this amount of money? We were like, I know what type of person that is. Because I feel like you're just chasing something, and it's like, it's a business. There's going to be up and down. But for you, how long would you say that, how much time was you putting into the business? Obviously, you started seeing profit and money month 1, month 2.
Yeah.
But how much time were you putting into it?
Yeah, I mean, initially, and I'll be honest, like, although the business was generating revenue, I wasn't making anything. Like, it was like, hey, if I made something, it got reinvested back into the business.
Yeah.
And that's, come on, it's a baby. You have to feed it to grow. Mm-hmm. Like, people want to eat out their business immediately. It's like, bro, you taking out $200. Like, come on now, like,
go do with that.
Yeah, like, put the 200 back into the business. Let the business grow. Like, the business needs that 200 more than you need that 200. Go drive Uber, do something if you need that 200 that bad. But it's like, if you understand, it's almost like a delayed gratification thing. If I understand, hey, let me do that. Let me just be okay with nothing for a period of time, then that's okay. So for me personally, I mean, before I started like actually taking anything out of the business, that was like, okay, this is actually decent money, right? That I could actually apply to something in my life, right? It took me, I would say, about a year, right? And from the point I started it, August 2020, to the following year, by that summer, I was able to leave my job. I had replaced my income from that, like, as far as like what I pay myself from the business. The business was making, I think at that point, $30,000 a month. But I was so conservative and aggressive with reinvesting back into the business. I was putting everything back into the business. So until the business was making 25 to 30, that's when I was able to replace my income at my job, which was like, at that time, like $6,000 a month or something. So that's what I was paying myself from the business.
So a year in from starting your cleaning business, you left the corporate world.
Yeah. And that's with me, like, I was putting like full effort into that thing, like 100% focus on that. Like, I was getting rid of all the other stuff. It took a few years to kind of like completely dismantle everything else because I dug myself in such deep holes with other things. I had to like dig out of those. But like, yeah, it took about a year of me, I would say I was probably putting in, because this, by the way, I was answering all the phone calls myself.
For a year?
Yes, I was doing everything.
You was doing the work.
Yeah, by myself
That's reinvesting.
for a year. Like, because I wanted, and here's the thing. People think like, oh, he was answering the phone calls. Why? It's like, because I needed to learn the business. I needed to learn it before I could tell somebody else how to do it. Because just my personality. I'm very specific in the way I like things to be done. So it's like, I need to know. I can't tell you to do something and expect a result if I don't even know how it's supposed to be done. So I took a year. I'd say, and I tell people, I took over, I would say within that year, it was probably well over 1,000 phone calls that I did by myself. And I had to I created scripts, memorize them. Like, it became like second nature at some. Right now, I couldn't tell you what my scripts look like now because I haven't taken a.
Well, that's the point of a business, right?
Yeah,
You're in it, and then eventually you can pass it on to someone else.
Exactly, but like, it took that amount of time to learn the business. It wasn't even about the money. I was spending that time to learn the business. So I was putting in probably, I don't know, 15 hours a week into the business, right? And people think 15 hours, that's not a lot, but it's like 15 hours of taking phone calls, that's a lot of phone calls.
That is.
If
and
that's
dealing
not
with
your
customers.
regular,
And I was like, yo, that's not my full-time thing.
Right.
So it's like I'm doing that on top of other stuff. So, yeah.
But I appreciate you sharing that because a lot of times we have students come in and they're like, well, how long were you guys on the phone? I'm like, I don't think we got somebody till maybe 7 months in, but we had a 9 to 5, we had to like give it up. But a lot of people are just quick to, they want everything quickly, like you said. They want to, and don't get me wrong, everybody wants a reward, but they're not willing to put in the work. So I'm happy that you're able to share the real deal of what it looked like for you, because people are seeing on our Instagram, oh, $1 million, wow. Are you doing that type of work to hit $1 million? Probably not.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely, yeah, man.
In regards to just like putting that work in, you were talking about like you didn't take out money from the business for a whole year. And I think we said 2 years for us.
2 years,
because we still kept our 9 to 5s.
Yeah.
But you got to that point where you reached like financial freedom. But why was that so important to you? You saw the older, you said 30 was older. I'm like, shoot. I'm like, damn, you were a couple years out of school and you like, I want to achieve financial freedom. I'm 37 and I just thought about this, less than 5 years ago.
It's a different world though.
You're like, I want to achieve financial freedom as soon as possible. So why was that so important to you?
Yeah, because to me, it's like, I don't want to be forced to do anything. I want to live my life on my own terms. Like, and ultimately, it's like, it's freedom. So I'm not anti 9 to 5, which a lot of people would have thought from the podcast. I mean, it was a point in time I was, but I've like, I'm more.
Things have changed.
Yeah, I'm much more rational in my perspective. Again, I say older. I'm 26 now, but like,
you are getting wiser. I get it.
yeah, like I'm much more rational when it comes to things. So it's like, I'm not saying I'm anti 9 to 5. It's more so, it's like I have an option, right? So I can go to work if I want to because I want to, right? Because I want to make extra money or wherever I want to do this. If I don't have nothing better to do, I can go to work. But to be forced to do it because I don't have a choice, no, that's terrible. Like, I don't want to do anything by force. And that's why ultimately I think is, the greatest thing about living in this country is just the fact that, hey, I have the choice to kind of create the lifestyle I want. And I have ways that I can go about doing that. And for me, financial freedom is the way to do that because I think if I'm able to, go on a vacation for a month if I want. I mean, I did a lot of traveling, and that was something that was very important to me, like something I really wanted to do. At this point, I'm kind of like traveled out. I don't really have anywhere else I really want to go, but like there was initially that was a big motivation. I wanted to travel a lot, and it's hard to do that when you got a 9 to 5. I mean, you get 2 weeks like per year, so it's very difficult to do something like that. But I had the option to do that, and I was able to take a month of vacation, and the business still operates. So to me, that is the ultimate like flex. It's not even about the money. It's just, do I have an option? Yeah, because I didn't upgrade my lifestyle at all. I didn't take any money to go do anything ridiculous as far as buy a new car, get a new place. Which I'm not saying those are really ridiculous things. For me, it was just not a priority. So yeah,
options, man. That's what we did. We just visited a school for our daughter, and we were just in there, just testing the waters, and we were like 22 kids are in this room. They're in this room for 8 hours a day, and I'm like, you're not even 2 years old. Like, and then they was explaining, yeah, a lot of parents, they don't have the ability to kind of keep their kids home, which we understand. But this is the importance of like money. It just gives you options where if we don't want to, have our kid there all day, we're like, we can have our kid come home. So
I actually say daycare is the beginning of the end of their life.
Really?
Because you're in school until you go to college, and then you go to work, and then
that's
if that's your trajectory,
that's your path.
That's a good way to look at it.
That's literally what happens. They start and then they continue on until they do something different. But I was going to ask you something just. A year you were in the business, and then once the year came, did you put somebody in that place?
Yeah, so that's when I started hiring customer service representatives.
Okay.
Right, and I mean it was virtual assistants essentially, but that was their job title. And I trained them for months. Well, I started with one. I trained her for like a month on how to do things. I would, like, all the phone calls were recorded. So, like, I would show her how to do it, teach her how to do everything, go through the scripts, like, show her how everything's done. And then I would, like, listen to every one of her calls meticulously for, like, the next 2 months and, like, give her feedback after every single call. So I was still kind of pretty much on every call. It was just, like, after the fact. Until eventually she got to a point where she was able to, do it just as well as me. And I kind of look at business like this. People can feel some type of way about it, whatever, but I say it's like I don't want people thinking in my business, personally. In certain positions, right? There's certain roles where people should think, but generally, like, there's a reason that, certain fast food restaurants like Chick-fil-A can run with 17, 18-year-old kids as efficient as they do. Because those are roles that it's like they're not left to discretion, right? I'm not telling you, hey, go do this how you kind of want to do it. No, they're telling you this is exactly how you're going to do it. This is the standard operating procedure for this. And that's the same approach I took with her. It's like, hey, I don't need you to second guess or think, oh, maybe should I do this? No, in fact, that's the wrong thing to do. I want you to
know for a fact.
Yeah, like I want you to know how the script says it should go, because again, I'm telling you based off of experience from thousands of calls.
Right.
So I have the experience. So yeah, it once she was in place, then man, I was at that point the business was like.
And then how many do you have now?
Customer service reps?
Yeah.
4.
4. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's like, honestly, it's like they work in shifts. So it's like always somebody working. And that's kind of the way that I was able to set it up to where I never have to do anything, which is what I wanted to do.
Exactly.
You mentioned traveling for a month, and that was just like, one of your goals to get out there and experience the world. And now you got your team in place. You're able to travel. How did that feel like, being able to travel for so long and not worry about your business, though? Because I know you might get a little shaky, whatever, but you feel like you had things in order during that time?
I would say initially, because I took a financial freedom celebration trip. I went to Barcelona. This was September. Well, first I went to Puerto Rico in August 2021 for like a week, and that was like the first time I really tested it. But it was like kind of fine because I was still a little bit involved over the phone. But I really like let go when I went to Barcelona the next month, and I just like, all right, I'm not gonna do anything. And the business, that was the best month that I had of that entire like year up to that point. Once I just like completely let go, and it was like, wow, I saw it and I was like, man, I should have just did this earlier.
Did we say that? the month we had our baby was born for February 28th.
Yeah.
So March 1st, the whole month of March, that's when we actually let our operations manager fully be in place. That was our biggest month ever.
Really?
Yeah. We're like, was it us?
Isn't it crazy how that works?
Do you think it's because you were holding on the reins too tight?
I think there's multiple factors. One thing, though, I do think holding on too tight, like I guess, that analogy is applicable just because, it's almost like the people feel like somebody's hovering over them. And it's like somebody's watching my every move versus when, hey, you're not even going to hear from me. They kind of have freedom to breathe and, like, they're able to mess up and it's, like, not going to be a big deal. Not to say you couldn't mess up before, but it's like you're more relaxed. And I think, especially when it comes to sales, because that's essentially what I was teaching them is sales is – you have to kind of you can't be so anxious, right? When you're trying to sell, people on something on the phone.
Cleaning is a luxury product.
Exactly, right? So I think that was a big factor. Is just they were the staff was just able to relax and just kind of, do things the way they were taught and how they learned to do it without any pressure. So
let's talk about like the structure of your business a little bit, because I know we get a lot of questions about how you run day to day. So do you clean houses at all?
No. I've never cleaned one house. Ever.
Never cleaned one.
No, I never. I told myself, I was like, I'm never gonna do that. I would never. I will lose a client. I will lose money before I ever do that, because at that point, that's when you start buying yourself a job, and I think people need to go in with that mindset of, hey, I'm not doing this to like. It's funny because it was like, I always related back to like I mentioned how I had like a trucking business before. I would tell my mom about it, and she'd be like, well, why don't you just go get your CDL just in case? CDLs are like your commercial driver's license, so you can drive a truck. She'd be like, just go get your CDL just in case you need to go pick up a truck. And I'm like, no, that is like creating a foundation of like, oh, I can always just go be in my business.
My truck myself.
Yeah, you're creating a mindset of like, oh, okay, I can always just go be in the business myself. And it's like, no, you have to, even if you have the smallest business ever, you have to think of it as if it's already a big business. You have to think of it as if it's already a franchise, it's scaled, it has, staff. You have to start from there. You can't like try to like do everything yourself and then be burned out and then try to get there. No, it's always better if you start from there.
My CEO, I always say this all the time, my CEO, my tech firm that I used to work at, he didn't know anything about technology. If something would have went, he had one employee when he first started, and I let you know for a fact, he never hopped on a phone call to deal with tech.
Yeah.
He never got behind a computer. He barely knew how to operate his own computer.
Yep.
He knew how to run the business, and he always said, worst case scenario, I could always find somebody to do their job. And he's like, he's never done it. So I understand that aspect of it. But what happens if, or I'm sure this happened early on, so you have a client and your cleaner doesn't show up or whatever. Like, how do you deal with situations like that?
Yeah, I mean,
back then versus today, I guess too.
Yeah, I mean, if obviously those things happen, they're gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it's like I'm willing to take the punishment that's gonna come with it because I understand the risk I'm taking.
Yep.
That's the thing. You have to understand.
With business in general.
Yeah.
Any business has risk.
Exactly. You have to understand that's an inherent part of business is going to be customer dissatisfaction, especially when you're talking about service-based businesses specifically.
Yep.
So understanding that, I have to create a system for that rather than now I become proactive to that rather than being reactive to it, right? Oh, I already anticipated something like this would happen. So, okay, cool. Let's just see what is the standard operating procedure say for this. Staff is already trained on what they should do. So generally when something like that happens, for example, it's, they have a kind of framework for reaching out to them and offering them some sort of, compensation or something to make sure that they feel like, okay, hey, at least we care, right? Because
things happen.
Yeah, like things happen, but at least we care. Like we couldn't foresee this, something happened, whatever. To say it was an emergency, something happened. But let's try to give them something off on the next clean, get it rescheduled, whatever the case may be. There's a way to proactively handle that so it doesn't become. Because I think people's worry is, they're gonna go leave a negative review. Like people are gonna do what people are gonna do regardless what you do. Like, like you can try to, like you have to just have a framework to handle that stuff versus trying to prevent it. It's gonna happen. Like
You could give them the moon, it's going to be an issue. As
exactly.
long as there'll be something.
Like there's just certain people you cannot please.
Yep.
And that's in every business. There's no business you can like get in. There's like you're gonna please everybody. It's impossible.
And so speaking of that, what would you say is the biggest challenge you face with the cleaning business or getting the business up and running?
Initially, I would say probably it was finding reliable contractors.
Yep.
And I think it's because I look at it like this. I don't look at it as I have a cleaning business. I look at it as I have a marketing business, right? And that's how I've always saw it. And that's what I feel like has allowed me to scale it relatively quickly is because I don't care anything about the cleaning. I focus on marketing. And when I say marketing, it's like you have to understand who you're marketing to. You're marketing to two parties. You have contractors, independent contractor cleaners, and you have customers. Customers are the easy part. Like that, all you got to do is throw more marketing dollars in there. You'll get more eyes on your business. It's a numbers game at that point, and more people will call you, close more sales, like whatever. There's plenty of money. There's plenty of customers. That's never an issue. But finding quality people is always going to be the bottleneck, I think, of a service-based business because at some point it kind of becomes like you become limited in the quality.
Your growth.
And the growth and all of those things based off of, the quantity and quality of your staff and your cleaners and your contractors. And so early on, that was a big issue. And I think solving that is really, those kinds of things are, a lot of the things in the business are very market location specific. So it's like certain things you can like try, but it might not be the answer. Like something that might have been the answer for me might not be the answer for someone else in a completely different area, right? Because it's just different. Service is catering to different customers. They have different kind of styles and appetites and ways of doing things in different areas. Like, I can't, like, for example, finding contractors on Facebook in South Texas is much more, that was very effective. But I can't say that Facebook is going to work well in California to find contractors. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's something that worked very well for me, and I was able to kind of use that to. Again, it's a numbers game. I always look at marketing as a numbers game. The more people I can get in, the more I can get out. My goal is to eliminate as many people as possible. So as many people as apply, if 100 people apply and I can eliminate 95, that's a great thing. Because I know I got 5 quality people.
You sound like Anthony. I wanted to see if your challenge was different, because that's something that we tell people all the time.
Yeah.
The hardest part of the business is finding good people.
It's
but I feel like that's anywhere. I feel like Target, Red Lobster, they struggle with that too. Like everywhere struggles.
Every big business.
You guys said you guys went out yesterday and this lady was bizarre. I'm like, everywhere struggles with good people. So when people are like,
way beyond bizarre. She was crazy.
I'm like, contractors is the hardest thing, and like you said, it can stump your growth because you kind of depend on having them, with your business. So but yeah, and go ahead.
I was gonna say, when did you feel like this thing is starting to work now?
Yeah.
When you're like, I got it, I understand it.
Yeah,
it's go time.
I would say 2021, halfway through that year, that was when I was like, okay, I'm going all in on this. And then 2022.
That was after you got rid of the trucks and the real estate.
Yeah.
And
Well, when I had
bonds,
that's
crypto.
That's when
vending machines.
That's when
ATMs.
It took a while to get rid of them.
Yep.
But that's when my mindset kind of checked out of them.
Okay.
Because I think that's the thing. It's like you can still have it, but it's like, where's your mind?
Where's your energy and stuff going?
My energy, I said I'm focusing on this. So I kind of just stopped caring about the other stuff. And, that was a whole nother thing. But like once my energy and my mindset was able to like focus 100% on this, that's when it really was able to pick up. Because, you got to think, it's like if I'm able to kind of get this result, I can get $30,000 a month just with doing haphazard energy or like 50% focus. What can I get if I do 100% focus? And that's when, we started getting $50,000, $60,000 months towards the end of 2021. And then 2022 was a huge year as well. And that was kind of just, carrying momentum from 2021, I think. So that was, to answer your question, I would say like end of 2021, about a year and some
into
months.
The business.
What was your highest revenue month?
60,000.
60,000.
Yeah,
okay.
that was January of last year, I think. January, it's like 60,000.
And what did you do that month to get to that level?
Spent more on marketing. That's really all it is. That's why I think it's really so simple. And I don't mean to say that it's like, oh, why can't everyone do this? I mean, it's like
well, that's what people in the comments gonna say. Is it real? Is it working?
Right.
They say it does, but it's not working for me. So
yeah, my thing is once you figure something out, it becomes more simple, and because you have a formula, and now it's just about scaling. Scaling is easy. Like it's much easier to get 100K a month than it is to get 10K a month. Because to get to 10K a month, you had to figure out how to even get to 5K, how to get to 7K, 9K. Like, you tried a bunch of things probably. But to get to 100, you're doing the same thing you did to get to 20, 30, 40,
just
50.
Replicating it.
You're just replicating and adding more money. So it just becomes at that point. And then, at that point now, I look at the business as kind of like a faucet. If I want more, just turn the faucet
Put
up.
more marketing dollars in.
Yeah, if I want less, or if I'm not as, being aggressive, just turn it down a little bit. And it's kind of like, my flavor. I've kind of found a sweet spot for me where, I'm kind of like at a place where I don't want to say like complacent, but it's like, I'm not as like, just because I've had like a mindset shift on some other things, I'm not as like, oh, I need to go. I need 100 million. Like, I'm not there as much so as I was just because, again, getting older. But, that's just kind of where my mind is now.
And I know that you opened a second location. So how quickly did you open that second location after starting the first one?
I think it was that was in 2021 as well, in the summer. I think that was pretty much a year in, or like 11 months in. Like right after, I was like, okay, what's stopping me? I already figured it out for this first one. Let me just,
go to another city.
Yeah, create, and that's why I really truly believe. Because, again, it's a service-based business. All you're doing is you're creating a new business in every city. So you have to kind of figure out each city. So it wasn't just as simple as like, oh, let me just go to this new city. Because I'm not going to lie. I've tried 3 cities, and they were all significantly different. And I had different success and different struggles at each of them. And you have to know them individually, and you have to know that they are separate businesses. Although it could be the same name, it's a completely different business over there. And that's why I think when it comes to scaling, that's kind of the approach. It's like, okay, let me go start this new business versus let me just open up a new location.
Mm-hmm. What difficulties did you find in doing multiple locations?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was depending on the size of the city, like, for example, Houston, right? Like, I started doing stuff in Houston. And, man, Houston's so big that it was like I had to have 5 businesses in Houston. Like, it wasn't, meaning I had to have 5 locations in Houston of my business. It wasn't just like, oh, let me just do Houston. So each part of Houston became a different business because Houston was so big. So it's like we'll have contractors in Southeast Houston. I couldn't have them just going to a job over in a completely different part. So I had to have like essentially separate businesses for each location. So that was the biggest thing. And then on top of that, it was just kind of figuring out what are the proper marketing channels for that specific city, because the competition is going to dictate kind of what works there, right? And based off of like, you know, what other people are kind of doing and what other people have had success with and what that clientele of that city is kind of using, right? Again, like people in California are using Yelp a lot more. People in Austin might be using Yelp a lot more than people in, you know, in Indiana, right? It's just a different kind of clientele demographic. So figuring those nuances, that's the difficult part. But again, those are the things you got to figure out initially anyway when you start with one location. So. Yeah.
And what do you say about people that complain or can say, can it work in my state? Like, part of our logo was like, we have students in 35 states. It can work in your state, sweetheart. Whatever state you about
Y'all
to
put
tell
it in
me,
a logo
it can work.
That was an FAQ, huh?
Yeah, it's like, because we kept getting the question. So what do you think about, like, saturation and all of that? Do you care about that at all when it comes to this business?
I get that question still. Like, literally got asked that last week. And I'd be like, wow, people are literally, like, hesitant to actually do this because of that. And it's like,
because of saturation?
Because of saturation.
The word saturation.
Yes, like that's the word they love to use is saturation. I'm like, what's up with y'all in this word saturation? Like, bro, like it's just like it's not that big a deal because I think of it like this. There's plenty of customers. There's plenty of clients. It's like there's no
more
shortage.
Clients than businesses.
Yes. Like think about it. If I go and search for any sort of service-based business, I might see maximum, let's say you're looking at the Google My Business listings, you might see 20, even 30. In that given hour, there was probably 100 people looking for a cleaning or some sort of service. And depending on it, I mean, with cleaning, I think it's generally the higher, I think it has the highest potential as far as number of customers, just because it's one of the more common service-based business. But I look at it like I have to just market to my client, right? So I had a certain customer demographic I called Mr. Mom, right? It was something in my SOPs that I created. And it was like they have a certain profile, they had a certain age, like race, background, income. Like it was, I figured out everything about
a full avatar for your clients.
Yeah, like I figured out exactly who is this customer that we're targeting, and I called it Mr. Mom because it was generally what I found worked for me, and that was a woman who was in her mid-30s to anywhere like mid-50s, right? That was generally where it was, and she worked a job, but she had kids, but she still also had other familial and household obligations. So like cooking and cleaning, like all those things. She still had to do that while she was working a job because obviously, dual income households, that's much more apparent today. So it's like, I know that woman, because she still has those obligations to like clean and do stuff, but she has money now, she's willing to spend on cleaning. She's willing to kind of go and, invest some of that money so she can relieve herself of those duties. And so that's who I'm targeting. So when it comes to saturation, the reason I don't care is because I'm not looking to get everyone. I'm only looking for specific people.
Now, did that change for you now versus when you started? Because I find that, exactly. Because I find that when, a lot of our students start out, they just want anything and anyone. And we tell them all the time, trust me, all money ain't good money. But I feel like people have to learn that on their own because they're just constantly chasing everything. And I'm like, you will learn. Like, you don't want that client. I promise you. I'm trying to save you, but people still have to get burned if you
And sometimes that's how you got to learn. I had to learn that way. I mean, it was like, I didn't know, I was targeting a certain individual. I had to learn that, like, wow, this person is actually very annoying and I don't even want your business.
Right.
Like, it took me time through those thousands of phone calls I did, it was like some people I was like, I would like I'm not gonna lie, I would just act super dry and not even go through my script.
Because you could tell by what they
I'm like,
actually
yeah,
say.
you already just doing too much. I don't even want your business.
Give me some examples of what people could look out for there. That's good right there.
Yeah, so somebody initially getting on the phone and saying something like, do y'all do something like super super niche or specific? It's like, oh, do y'all can y'all come and do my underneath my barbecue grill or something like that. And it's like, bro, you already are doing too. Like, I can see you already gonna be like on 10 when they get there and something's gonna be off. And it's like, it's just certain people. Like, you gotta like know generally the type of people that don't give you problems and the people that do give you problems. And then also like also it's gonna be certain areas, certain locations depending on where they're coming from. If you know your city, you know your location, you're gonna know where certain clients that are the higher, willing to pay more and willing to kind of, not be as much of a nuance to your business and your employees.
Asshole, yep.
Yeah, there's going to be those clients that are going to live in certain areas versus other clients that are going to live in other areas. Go do what you want with that information. But like, that's generally what I found. So, but it just takes time to do those calls and listen to know those things because it's going to be different. But I mean, yeah, there's things you can just tell, just kind of with the energy some people be on, if they're rude. If they're kind of like just
my trigger always was like, well, do your people speak English?
English,
yeah.
I used to hate that. I used to be my blood boy. Like, well, why are you assuming they don't? Like, I mean, obviously, I didn't say that back.
Yeah,
somebody like that.
Yeah.
Or we had someone that we had to. We found out they had a pet, and we charge a pet fee.
Yeah.
And we were trying to charge them the pet fee, and they're like, "Well, you're willing to lose my $400 just for 15?" Absolutely, with the way you're acting. Yes, I am.
It ain't worth it. I don't want you.
We took that review on the chin too.
Yeah, she wrote a review. She wrote a review that we didn't come to her cleaning because we were charging a pet fee and we were willing to lose that money.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, it goes back to those clients that you speak about that is not, you don't want all of them.
Yeah. No, all money ain't good money. I mean, initially I get the hype, like the emotion around it is more emotional than anything. You're just willing, you'll sell your soul for a customer initially. And I understand it, but trust me, we're speaking from experience. So it's just like, but again, a lot of people got to learn those lessons just on their own.
You. Speaking of lessons, give me the actual, what was the revenue and the time frame? I want you to say it so I can chop that clip up and we could post it everywhere. So go ahead, and then I'll go to my question.
Ad somewhere.
Yeah. So from the time I started the business of August of 2020 till May of this year, 2023, I hit $1 million in sales, and that was about 2.5 years to do 1 million.
So number one, congratulations. We could definitely clap that up again. So now my question for you is: so I remember we didn't even realize we hit that number, and I was like, "Yo,
last year,
we just hit $1 million." Number one, it took us 5 years to do it.
Yeah.
You did it in
5.5
years. Almost 6. Damn, dude. That's a long time. It took you.
I had a baby. I mean,
it only took you 2.5 years, and I don't want everyone to feel like I gotta, do it as fast as Alex did. But when you got there, number one, I don't think you said you even knew you got there.
No, I didn't.
But when you recognized it, what was that like moment for you? Like,
no, it was a surreal thing because again, just kind of going back to earlier, it's like, bro, how can you take $350 worth of information and create $1 million worth of revenue out of that? Like, think about that alone. Like, I don't know what the percentage on that is, but I'm sure that's 5 figures. In terms
nowhere is giving you that. College ain't giving me that.
Yeah, like you can't get that anywhere. I mean, you gotta hit the lottery or something like that. That's like lottery type of returns. Think about that literally. If somebody said go buy $350 worth of lottery tickets and I guarantee you'll win $1 million, everybody's gonna do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, they will.
So it's kind of like a thing, or it was just like, wow, that alone to me, not even the number, it was just like the fact that is something that's possible is crazy based off of just something like y'all had in y'all's head.
Yeah.
Y'all decided to, I just want to share this and see, what other people can do with it.
So you hit that $1 million number. You're like, all right. And it seems like you're also having a mind shift change as well, where it's not just all about the money for you, but where's your mindset at now where, you hit financial freedom, the cleaning business is kind of automated for you at this point. Well, actually 100% automated for you at this point. So where's your mindset at in terms of money and just like, where do you want to kind of be in life or go?
Yeah.
What's your next steps?
I mean, right now, again, because I feel like I was so focused on money, financial freedom from 21 to 26 for these 5 years. And my goal was financial freedom. Like when I was 21, I said 5 years I wanted financial freedom. I hit that when I was in 2021. I was 25 at the time. So I did it in the time period I wanted to do it. But it's kind of like, you know, I experienced it. I had fun with it. But like now, I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of at a point where it's like, okay, well, what's next? And not to say like, oh, I don't want to continue to, you know, achieve financial success and those kind of things. But my mindset has kind of just become a little more balanced in the sense of like, hey, I have other aspects of my life that I also want to develop and focus on now that I have achieved, you know, the goals I set for myself 5 years ago, right? Because there was kind of, you hit certain milestones and then you get to a point where it's like, okay, now what do I do? Right? Do I want to just keep chasing another milestone? At that point, it's like, when does it stop?
It doesn't with entrepreneurship. That we have those conversations all the time. Like it doesn't stop. You go for the 10,000, you go for the 50, you go for the. You're constantly chasing until you stop yourself. I mean, I don't know what. And even then, we're like, but you could get more. But like you said you're at a point like I don't want the 100 million.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have those conversations. We see other people talking, and we're like, well, I don't want to work as hard as they do. So maybe I don't want it as bad as I thought. Maybe I am fine with just the amount that I'm making because I don't want to put in that work. What my life looks like is a little different.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. But it's like I'm so grateful just to even have that perspective, right? Because
at that age,
because a lot of people you can take that kind of mindset for your entire life and then look back and it's like, what I might have created something amazing, which is great, but what are you gonna? Like,
what did I do?
What do you? Can you take it with you?
Yeah.
No. Like I'm. All things considered, it's like I'm looking to go to heaven. I have an eternal destiny somewhere else, and I can't bring my business with me.
Can't bring my cleaning business to heaven.
So, like, you know, I want to obviously just like have family, do these things, and kind of develop other aspects of my life because I think that's important, and I can kind of continuously do them simultaneously. I don't necessarily. I can give some of my energy to those things that are also important in life. I don't have to only just focus on, and it just becomes so much of a monotonous thing at some point. It can turn into a job almost. Yeah. And that's literally what I was trying to get out of. So, you know.
And if you had to do it over, is there anything you would do like sooner or bigger when it comes to the cleaning business, or you felt like it was a perfect pace for you?
Honestly, there's nothing I would do differently. If I'm being honest, there's nothing I would do differently. I think the only thing you could say is like, I mean, maybe investing more, but it's like,
how much more?
Like, how much more? Yeah. You know, like eventually I had to take something for myself. So, you know, enjoy it. So, you know, that's why I cannot complain. Cause my thing is like, I could say that if I was y'all, because like the reason it took y'all that time period, 5 years, 5.5 years to get that is because y'all didn't have a blueprint to it. Y'all were figuring it out on your own. So it's like, I'm sure if y'all were in, you know, my shoes right now, based off of like not having a blueprint, of course there's things you probably say, oh, I would do that different.
Yeah.
But I literally did exactly what y'all said in the blueprint. And that's like, you know, that's all I did. I mean, granted, there's other things you kind of figure out and you have to learn on
as
your own.
As a business owner.
As business. Like, it's not like a, you know, a recipe like that you're going to follow and get the exact same dish. But like, for the most part, I did what you said to do. If you said go to this website, I'm not going to another website. I'm not going to do this. I'm not doing anything else. I'm going to do exactly what you said to do. So for that reason, I can't say I have a regret because it's like, what would I have done differently? I feel like I did the right thing. So.
And with this last year being your biggest year in the business, I know you had took a social media break.
Yeah.
How did that play into just your mindset and business and everything being off of social media?
Yeah, I think it made me, that was also one of the catalysts for me to just like kind of realize like, man, it's like other aspects of life that are actually important that I actually want to develop. And the kind of the social media thing, because we was doing the podcast like continuously. We did 150 straight episodes, and that kind of was like a burnout thing where it's like, you know, I was editing podcasts every week. We were traveling between cities and setting up, and it was just like, I was getting tired.
Your energy
I was getting tired
drained,
of it. Yeah, and it's just like, you know, my Instagram got disabled. I didn't intentionally mean to take that social media break. I got hacked, and like my Instagram got disabled. Oh, yeah. And so like it kind of forced me off. But I was like, when it happened, I was like, I guess
maybe it's a sign.
Yeah.
Blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I guess I'm done for social media for now. And I had no intentions I still really don't have an intention of like coming back to like teach and do all that right now, at least. Like maybe at some point, but like my mindset has just been kind of shifting in that regard. So I'm more focused on like kind of building, you know, my own business and my own kind of thing individually as far as outside of social media. I've never really been a fan of creating income off of social media just because of it relying on my presence and my brand and my likeness, which I think there's value to that to a degree. But if a majority of my income is coming based off of my likeness and based on whether I appear or show up, that's not what works for me. I'm not saying it's wrong for other people. If that's your thing, do your thing. But for me, I don't want to have to show up to make money. Like, I don't want to.
But I gotta show up.
That's why we have this podcast.
Yeah.
No, this
But this is not even an income generating podcast. We literally do this just to share information.
Not at this time, from our lips to God's ears. Maybe one day it will be,
Amen,
but not
amen.
right now.
Amen.
So right now, I guess we could start wrapping up. But since we are live, you guys have any questions that you want to ask Alex about the cleaning business or just marketing or just business in general, or anyone in the room?
So when I say like new businesses, that's actually a good question. I didn't necessarily mean I'm creating new entities. You could create new entities, and that's probably, a good way to go about it. But I essentially created new procedures and standard operating principles and procedures for that specific city. So it wasn't necessarily I was creating a new entity with, a whole new, structure and certificates and all that kind of stuff. I would just go in and say, okay, what works in this city? And I'll create, duplicate documents from previous cities and update them based off of this city for the standard operating procedures. For example, sales scripts might look a little different. Marketing, strategies are a little different based off of the clientele, things like that, based off of that specific city. So I have, documents that are hundreds of pages with the different kind of, standard operating procedures for that specific city. Yeah. Yeah, so what you have to do is create that is what you actually do, create a new one of. You create a new Google My Business listing and give it, for example, whatever your business name is, you put the dash in this new city. And that, you have to create a new Google My Business email. You have to get it verified. You need to get a virtual address for that location. And essentially it becomes, to Google's eyes, it's a different business than yours. But obviously it's your brand because it's your name, your logos, your likeness, whatever. But Google doesn't know that. And the reason you have to do that is because Google, I believe it treats businesses differently if it's like an independent business versus like a segment of another business, if that makes sense. Yeah. The documents? Yeah. No, I was able to use the same ones. So,
Anybody else? You guys good? All right. So
I was gonna say, just if you can tell those people that may be skeptical about starting the cleaning business, anything that you would tell them that may be on the edge or on the fence of getting started.
Yeah, I would just say, if you have to first truly understand what you want. You have to know if what you want is in alignment with what this is, and you have to know what is entailed with this, right? Just because you're getting I think a lot of people think because they're going to invest, especially if they're investing whatever X amount of dollars, 4-figure amount of dollars into something, they think it should guarantee results. I don't need to put in extra work or whatever. I should be able to just do this exactly as it is and get the results. You cannot come into it with that mindset. Like Anthony was saying, it's not a play, it's a business. Because a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'm going to run this play. I'm going to, do this play or whatever the case may be. And you can't approach it like that. When you're approaching it like that, you're coming at it with a sense of I'm going to just kind of see how it is. I'm going to see how it's going to go. And whatever happens, happens. Versus I'm going to go in there and I'm going to, apply the processes, the strategies, the procedures, and I'm going to actually make this thing work. That's the mindset you have to go into and be willing to, fail. You have to be willing to lose money. You have to be willing to break even. You have to know that it's not going to be an instant successful thing. And but again, I'm sure that's y'all are not targeting people that are just looking to just
no.
do something.
And we're upfront and blunt with people when they ask certain things or say can you guarantee, and I'm like, nothing in life is guaranteed.
Yeah.
But death and taxes.
Yeah. I'm like, I just can't, I don't want to put that pressure on myself because I don't want you to take this course coming in with that. All right, well, I'm going to get it, but it's we give you the blueprint. I don't know what type of work ethic you have. I don't know how you're going to show up in your business. I give you the information, but then most people just want to blame us. It didn't work. Well, when I hop on the phone with you, what did you do?
Yeah.
How many phone calls did you take? How many interviews did you do? 2? That's That's not what I said.
And so, and you can really, that's why I say you have to be honest with yourself and know what you want. Because, hey, you might not want to do all that.
Right.
And if you don't, that's totally fine. Just don't do it then. But if you don't, if you are trying to go in with that mind, you're going to be disappointed if you get certain results that you didn't expect because you went in with the wrong mindset. Right. So I just, I would just tell anyone that's truly committed to it, just make the investment in yourself. And I guarantee you, within 2 months, you should definitely be, have made that back. 100. I mean, I think that's a pretty safe, estimate to make. I don't know what y'all have seen, but
no, you're good. No, you're good. So I guess how can you're not on? Are you almost back on social media? I was gonna say how can people find you? Can they tap into the podcast or anything? They can.
You gotta come through us and we pass it on.
Yeah, you can. How
can they support you in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, we still had a podcast out there. You can go check out the older episodes. We had 150 episodes. I talked about the cleaning business at the beginning of 70 of them. For the last 70 episodes.
So what's the name of the podcast?
Money Monopolizers. So you could definitely go check that. I had a YouTube channel, talked a lot about that stuff. Did, content for 3 years. So there's plenty of stuff out there. And, if you want to get a hold of me, you could probably just email me. Honestly.
There you go.
So that's, man, that's all I got.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a pleasure. It's been a time coming. We were excited to basically highlight you and show what is possible, as we try to tell people all the time, but they got to hear from someone else. So thank you for sitting down with us.
This was super inspiring, man, to go from just receiving the information to implementing to doing over $1 million in 2.5 years and growing. Number one, congratulations to you. Congratulations to everything you've achieved and everything you will achieve, man, and showing us what's possible and reminding us that, we can continue to change lives. So thank you, man. And this has been another episode of the More Than a Side Hustle podcast, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Bye.
All right.